Hello, everyone. We are here in Hacking Education, the podcast where we delve into education, the future and the present of education, our challenges. We are here to hack the educational system with some friends, with through deep conversations with deep minds. We are here with Rahul Razdan, an engineer, a scientist, entrepreneur, company builder, but and also an expert in AI, artificial intelligence, behind a lot of autonomous vehicle processes around the world. We met each other there in Tallinn, 2022, in a robotics summit where we talk about education. And so that's why we are here. Also with Mario Ramirez, an engineer from Colombia, uh, um, a company builder, entrepreneur, and a really smart guy, and with the purpose to talk and go deep into the educational system in terms to face or at least to find some of solutions of this challenges we have right now in the system. So I want to tackle the first point with this. What was the trigger that was the first idea that you have? Okay, we need to talk about education because you're an engineer, you're a scientist, but why and when was this first Eureka moment? We need to do something different with education.
Well, thank you for having me on this podcast. I have to explain that. I have to explain a little bit of my career because what I'm doing in education is a sort of a divergent from that. And so my career was very traditional. I went to high school, college. I ended up getting a PhD. I worked in the corporate world, did startups in technology, and all of this was to some degree very conventional, right? And then what happened was my son just entered a high school, a local high school here in Ocala, Florida. And of course, it was a very good high school, private high school, but a conventional high school. And as I was seeing that high school operate now with the eyes of an adult, as an eyes of a person that's seen a lot of things in his life, the thing that triggered in my mind was, this is very weird. This is more or less the same as my experience 40 years ago. Why hasn't education changed? Okay, and then that threw me into this whole journey and it just started as a curiosity question. Why is it the same? I mean, every other industry I know changes. Okay, but this is literally the same. Okay, and so in any case, that led me to a journey, and through my training and my career, I have gotten very good at looking at new industries and kind of breaking them down. Much like a McKinsey might do or something like that. So I did what most people do, which is I started interviewing people. I said, okay, and interviewed people that were looking at education, people doing education, and things like that. And all of that led to this TED Talk that I think you saw, which was really the results of my learnings. And the nature of my learnings was really this. It said the education system was built around an economic parameters where you had two things. You had the scarcity of a teacher and a scarcity of the place to teach. And these two things were pulled together, and really everything else, including the student, was put around this nexus. These two things were the scarce points. And so if you think about it, the way we schedule classes, the rank ordering of classes we have, all of that is really built around this very core principle. The only problem is neither of these things are really true anymore. The scarcity of the teacher, in the sense of somebody that knows that subject, is not really true, because you can go into the internet and learn anything literally today. And the scarcity of the place also doesn't exist, because you can virtually learn everything, right? So these bedrock principles that are the formation of the classroom model. Because when you study things like this, you start asking, why is the classroom model the model everybody uses? And by the way, it makes sense if these two things are scarce. What you do is you put these two things together, and you want to get a little bit of leverage, so you get 20 to 30 kids, and this is the basic engineering form that everything operates in. But if the fundamentals are changing, there's no reason that the classroom model has to be the only model, right? So to answer your question, it kind of came from my seeing my son's experience and seeing how that school was operating, which by the way is like any other school, and then asking questions like, well, this doesn't seem to make sense. And that whole journey, by the way, besides the TED Talk, it led me to all sorts
Highly recommended TED Talk.
Yeah. Well, but that led me to all sorts of other alternative models. Like I learned models like, there are models where people can take a class self-paced, not connected to a semester system. There are people that are working on certification-based things. There's, of course, and what I really learned was something which, when it hit me, was a little bit profound, which was if I broaden my thinking about what education is, by far the biggest education in the world is YouTube. It's not any traditional thing. So all of these things sort of, I guess, built on themselves as I explored this topic. So
Rahul, and Alejandro too, based on a comment that Alejandro made, which I always been super impressed with some of the comments, but it was like education is a big box. You go and you have a kid,
A big black box.
okay? You have a 6-year-old kid.
Yeah.
You put it into this box, and it comes out at the age of 21 to go work for somebody.
Yeah.
Okay. In my situation, it was the opposite. Okay. I was put in the black box at the age of 6. Okay. But when I came out, I didn't feel like I was ready with the knowledge that I needed to perform a job. Okay. So while in the black box, I had a bunch of difficulties as an immigrant and so forth and so on. I developed like a system, a present system and a future system to not only survive, but plan my future. Okay. So then the black box didn't work for me in a sense that I came out and I still today don't feel like I had all the tools that I needed to go work for somebody. Okay. So then I didn't have any other option but to start trying to find an answer to this need that I had, okay, on the education system. So it's super cool to know that we're still searching for that and that you open our eyes to the fact that YouTube could be the biggest educator, the biggest school, the biggest, and when we say YouTube, we're talking about a share of knowledge through videos which transfer so many content. I like so many other. It's not only like a book or it's entertaining, it's visually appealing, is like the emotions are there, and all this stuff. So I'm thinking that we are transferring a lot of that information into YouTube. So I keep searching my future through keep educating myself. So the black box for me sort of is growing on its own. I still don't feel like I'm out of that black box today, But I understand completely that today I feel like some of us disrupted that education or that purpose of the, you come out and then you work. And then by disturbing that, we're searching for different opportunities, things that will then fulfill that void where we didn't get the education that we were expecting.
Yeah. Actually, if you think an educational system like a black box, what kind of challenges you think we have right now in this present to tackle the face?
Yeah. I mean, so the first thing is, I mean, whenever you look at how a system of today, you have to always look at why it's that way, right? Because it's not that they were dumb people in the past, and so typically most systems that exist, have a reason for their existence. And as I said, one of the reasons is this economic model. So this economic model was built based on this scarcity model, and then, there was governmental investment and all of that sort of stuff. Now, the reality of what's going on in the world, and we all know this, nobody will tell you otherwise, is the rate of change of knowledge is very high. And so to expect, whether it's 20 years or 4 years of education or 6 years education, to expect that to last a lifetime on its own, on its face, does not make sense, right?
The world is changing so much rapid than that.
So the key turns out to be to train. It's the old the old thing about, you don't want to give people fish, you want to teach them how to fish, right? And so in my mind, there are sort of 2 or 3 big step functions that are interesting in terms of an education system. So the first one is, I mean, kind of a minimal level of socialization, right? So this is typically what you get in kindergarten, right?
Sure.
There's other people. Don't beat them up. Don't spit at them. This kind of thing. Okay, so that's kind of the first level. So the second level is, interestingly, reading, writing, and some very minimal arithmetic, what you might get in elementary school. And the reason that's important is because once you can read and you can write and you do a minimal set of arithmetic, you have the IP of the world in the form of books and now the internet available to you, right? So it's a big step function, because once you can read, write, and think, now you have an ability to engage with the world of other people, what other people have written and so on. So that's a big step function. The step function I think we're about to develop is, okay, you can read, write, and think, but how can you figure out how to learn something new using the resources that are easily available out there? So I'll say, how can you learn how to a new skill on the internet, as an example, or it can be beyond the internet, but how do you self-drive yourself to do that? Because once you can learn that skill, it's very possible to learn anything, right?
But let me.
Autonomous learning.
By the way, it's teaching yourself.
Teach yourself.
Yeah. Now, it implies many things that are unsaid, right? So the first thing it implies is you have enough context to understand what you're looking at.
Uh-huh.
It implies self-motivation.
Self-motivation.
Yeah. It implies an ability, an internal process of management of your own time relative to commitment you're going to make to a certain task. So these are all very important skills that if you don't have, you can easily get lost. It's like, yeah. But if you have them and you know how to in a disciplined way manage yourself. It's not the world. Manage yourself, right? Then you have the ability to leverage the world in an interesting way.
But leveraging the world is one, and then one of your podcasts, and I think I was with Mohammed talking about this, is that some of the issues of the world are similar.
Yeah.
But some have been solved in a different location.
Sure.
So in the case of LATAM or Latin America, we have some issues that are very present in India or in Africa. Mm-hmm. And we have solved those issues in Latin America, but they don't know that we have done that in Africa or India. Mm-hmm. So this proposal or proposition of people being able to first learn some basic concepts, and after that connect to all these people that share the same issues, they have similar problems, and then they have already come out with a solution. Yeah. Okay. In the same podcast, we were trying to preserve a concept that is super cool about artificial and then ancestral intelligence. Okay.
Two different AIs.
Two different AIs. Okay. So in the podcast, we were talking, okay, so in Africa, they sing to remember their ancestors. So they sing about their grandfathers, great-grandfathers, and the culture. And so also the sense of community in those tribes or in those areas is super strong. Okay, so community, then ancestors, and then some other alternative medicine, and you name it, and obviously some of these places also have good coaches, coaches that we talk about, the coaches, and then in Latin America, the sense of community is very poor. Okay, so because of the sense of community is poor, okay, we need to learn from those. So they already solved that issue. We haven't. So let's learn from that
and share it, and share the
everyone-
solutions. I was thinking, in this moment, the role of teachers is facing a lot of challenges, like not only with AI, but how you could design learning experiences, in engaging way with this kind of technologies and things. What do you think in the future, or at least in the near future, the role must change into what? Into what kind of approach, or what kind of role we must have?
Well, I think education needs to go through a process that really every industry goes through, which is that almost all industries start out with a generalist that does the whole task, that does everything, okay? And then what happens is over time, people start looking at the various parts of the tasks, and then you get specialization. And then you get IP capture, and you get, and I'll just use something very simple as cooking, right? So we all cook at home. Obviously, when you cook at home, you're doing everything, right? You're cleaning, you're getting the food, okay. That's the generalist, right? Okay. But of course, you get into in the commercial world, as it were, you have the idea of automation, and you have the idea of franchises, and then you have the idea of different price performance levels and things like that. That's all different aspects of using intellectual property processes, and what is McDonald's? It's cooking, right?
But let me there's sometimes in another conversation that we have with Rahul, you were talking about an engineer compared to liberal arts, okay, which is exactly this. An industry comes in as a generalist, okay, solves a very massive problem, and then they want to make sure that they have everything in tune to solve this issue, okay? Then engineering comes in, and it starts optimizing all this, which makes an engineer think down. Okay, so every time they're thinking about smaller, better and better solution, smaller, more optimal solution, okay, more efficient solution. And then in liberal arts, you have the expansion factor. Do you remember that conversation?
I do. And this is where I was going with this, which is in education, we have the generalist, which is that what we really do is we take a teacher and we say, teach this. Good luck. And that teacher, if you think about it, in the classroom, they're obviously coming up with their lesson plans. They're teaching. They're managing discipline. They're managing certification. All of that. It's almost an impossible job, right? You can't have it like there are some teachers that I'm sure are very good at inspiration and motivation. There are some teachers that are very good at understanding the subject matter, right? You cannot have a single person, I don't think, be the best at everything. So what happens with specialization, I'll say the engineering side, is people look at that and say, you know what? Why don't I get the best professor in the world at Stanford at teaching, and let's bring that captured into the classroom. But this teacher is very empathetic. Let's use that. Right, and then let's have the idea of instead of of course the limiting factor is the perfect thing for the student would be they would keep doing lessons until they get it, but the teacher can only grade so many lessons. So let's have automation to help with the process of the as the student is iterating. Okay, so what happens is this specialization, and by the way, if you look in these online schools, this is exactly what happens. Their team that puts together a class has a subject matter expert for the actual task. They have people that are good at graphics, There are people that are good at the audiovisual, animation, teaching experts, and so on. And that whole team actually constructs the actual class. And the way I think about it is, and by the way, the range of prices can be very, very, very large. I mean, I can have a teacher go in and give a lecture for whatever they cost, or you can have a movie that's, a Marvel movie for 2 hours that's, $600 million, right? So you can have a big range of production values there, right? The point being that is a arc that I think education is going through and will go through, right? But in any of these arcs, what happens is new problems show up, okay? And so new problems have to be solved. I'll give you my example from another industry. When e-commerce first became, when Amazon first came online, there was a very big debate. Will people actually buy something they've never seen? That was a big mental thing. Will they actually give money for something they've actually? It wasn't a technical question. It was a
Yeah, marketing.
it was a kind of a mental question, right? And then it turns out, and it was a big question until it wasn't, and it was kind of interesting, right? Because for a period of time, there were people that, it'll never happen, I'll never take. Yeah, maybe books, but nothing expensive, So there was this whole debate. Now I go back to teaching. What happens is you start getting this automation, you get all this stuff. The human elements of the connection between the teacher and the student, or even the organization and the student, become even more and more important, right? Because today, realistically, and we mentioned YouTube, if I want to learn quantum physics, I can. That's not the issue, right? The issue is how do I get enough context to know what I should look at? The issue is when I run into difficulty, how do I motivate? Am I motivating myself?
Yeah.
How do I certify that I've learned it so I can tell somebody else? So these are the new topics that are popping up that I think will get addressed, right? And people will get better at it. And in different professions, different parts of the professions will be emphasized, right? In my local district here, we're in Ocala, Florida here. If I were to say, okay, to the local teacher or local school, I want you to teach my son. Let me pick something esoteric. I don't know, Taiwanese. Okay. Well, their chances of finding a Taiwanese teacher physically here is zero, right? Okay. But really, that's not an issue right now. Why? Because you can go on the internet and run Taiwanese, right? This is not the limiting factor.
But the limiting factor that you were talking about, mentoring, and
it is. It's coaching, mentoring,
and I was looking from the professor, because a professor or a teacher, okay, and I also compare it to a father, and then from that we're going to mentor, and maybe you can elaborate on the story. But what happens is this: as a father, at the end, your son is going to say, why is that you didn't do enough? Okay? And no matter how difficult it is to be a father, it is just as difficult to be a teacher. And at the end, a kid is going to tell you, why is that you didn't do enough?
Yeah, this is the Eureka moment, because I realized that the Odyssey, from Ulysses, is kind of a real thing in the way that, you say to a teacher, okay, you will be the mentor of my kid during 10 years, 11 years. Meanwhile, I'm going to the war. I'm going to challenge the world, etc.
I'm going to work and some of this. So
exactly,
and the story is like, Ulysses goes. Okay, and you told me the story, so I can probably bring it up. But it's like, okay, my son is 8 years old. I'll leave you my son. I'm gonna go change the world. I'm gonna go work, defeat everybody.
To Troya. I'm going to Troya.
I'm going to Troya, okay? And then 20 years later, I come back and give me my son, okay? And mentor his friend, raise the son, and taught him everything the son knew then. So then it's like, okay, that was a responsibility of fatherhood, okay? Well, I was changing the world. We are giving that responsibility to some of the teachers for them to change our kids into something that we agree should be not only productive, but then should love us too. Okay? Because I want my son to be productive, to be free, to be happy, but to love me, you know? So it's like a humongous task for the teachers, and maybe it can be a task that can be shared. Okay? Maybe we
I
can.
realize that it's an almost impossible task. You know?
It is.
First time, the teachers, the teachers are really
Well, because
huge heroes.
I think the
in that way.
question, yeah, I mean, I think the question becomes, what's the mental model, right? So because I mean, there's an old story, by the way. Just I'll start with the story, then I'll go back to the teachers, right? So the story goes that there's two people working at a big construction site. And one of them is, they're both working equally hard. And one of them is sweating. It looks like they're in pain, all of that stuff. And the other guy is just smiling. Okay. So somebody goes up and says, "So why are you sweating?" This kind of thing, right? So I say, "Oh, this is a hard day. I'm moving these rocks. I'm building this building, And it's just it's just difficult, right? It's sunny, it's hot." And goes, "Well, why are you smiling?" The other person, "I'm building a cathedral," right? Same job, different vision, right? So the point of that story is it's a mental model. The point of the story is a mental model. Okay, now go back to the teacher thing. I think expecting a teacher to, there's one model of a teacher where it's an oracle. The teacher is the oracle and the student is the recipient, right?
Okay.
And that's a very difficult mental model because, first of all, the onus on the teacher is to know everything and do everything and have all the power of the oracle. Can also become abusive, by the way. But the other model, which at least I find much more interesting, is the model of the coach. And because the model of the coach is that you, the student, you are the star.
Yeah.
Okay. I am the coach. I will help you the best way I can. But you are the star. What that also means, I can give you knowledge, but you have to take advantage of it.
No, I
right?
mean, look.
Right. So my point is, and I think that especially if people think, if we think about sports coaches as just as an example, right? We don't expect, Messi's coach to be as fast as Messi, right? Or as good as Messi, right?
No, I was going to talk about the purpose,
Yeah.
the purpose of a coach, because whenever we see a professor or a father,
Yeah.
many teachers, professors, or fathers they want their son or their apprentices to follow their purpose. Okay,
Yeah.
and I see that. So I bought and sold plenty of family businesses, and the reason why I buy these businesses is because they said, "Hey, my son doesn't want to follow my legacy."
Right.
Okay, so one of the things that coaches do that many parents or teachers don't do is to lead the apprentice
Yeah.
to find his own purpose.
Correct.
Okay, so a coach will help to develop a purpose, but if you are a father, many times you want to impose your purpose.
Right.
So that's an interesting topic with coaching.
Because I was thinking, the comparison between coach and teach. A teacher, biology, for example, needs to convince the students to, okay, this is a good topic, it's important, and create a motivation. A coach, no, because you are, I don't know, you are doing tennis or basketball or whatever, but you're the coach of basketball, and so the kids go to the class, the basketball class, but with the self motivation. Is the base. But the difference, because the teacher must convince you first. Biology is important. But not basketball is important. No, you go there because you want to be the best basketball player in the world. But the motivation. The difference is in the school you don't have the motivation as the base, but in the coaching, in the sports, you have it. So it's another challenge.
But Alejandro, let me bring one of our friends, and he has an app that I like a lot. It's called Master Cracks. Okay,
Master Cracks.
Yeah, and I think is hacking education in a level. So what he's doing is he's getting professional soccer players, okay, to describe what they do in a day for training, okay? And then what the coaches made them do, okay? So then this is actual going into whatever they want to learn and how they doing it. And like you say, Messi plays way better than any coach, like Guardiola, okay?
Yeah.
So the idea of this apprentice student, or maybe you have a better Greek word for student or apprentice, I don't know, but in a sense,
Learner.
So the learner, okay, doesn't have to take the purpose of any of his teachers, okay? So by having a coach or a mentor, in this case, you can then develop a purpose and learn from the people that share your purpose. So then there will be like a community that somehow share a similar purpose that can then develop that community. We have the opportunity today, thanks to YouTube and then connectivity itself, to make a community that used to be of 2 people into a community of millions or maybe even billions. One of the purpose of
Using the technology, you think?
using not
Well,
only-
this is already happening.
yeah, it's
right?
already happening.
already
Yeah.
happening.
So then you'd say the groups in Facebook or the groups in one of the other social media channels, or WhatsApp, you create this community that has 350,000 members or 800,000 members that all share a common
Interest.
or task. So there's like, I think that community and purpose is going to be a little bit more complex than a group sharing the taste for certain food or a taste for a sport. I think that the community that is built on principal values of education or any other value is a more complex community. It's going to require a little bit more than just sharing one task or one subject, And I think that even though there's communities today, we still have a long way into developing.
Well, they're unstructured, right?
Yeah.
They're unstructured. So the thing, that's what I meant by, the biology teacher has a funny task, right? As you said, you said, well, I have to motivate them to learn biology. I mean, from the point of view of the student, they're being told, learn biology. I don't know what biology is, so
Trust me.
you trust me, and there's some sort of truth to that. By the way, that's not the conversation that's had. What's interesting is, I think there's a very different conversation that says, okay, we are choosing a number of things. This is not to the student, not to the parents. We're choosing a number of things which experience has taught us that if you know a little bit about this in the future, it'll be helpful for you to navigate the world, right? Okay, that's really what we're doing, right? I mean, the curriculum committees, I've sat on many. That's what they're trying to. Oh, okay, they'll see this over there. We should teach this. This is the sort of thing that's done. But that's not the interesting thing is, and getting back to the coach or the emotional side of things, right? The way that most kids are given the class of biology, I'll just use that as an example, is you got to do it. Tough luck, right? It's not a conversation. It's basically a directive, right? Now, you can imagine how the motivation difference might be different if somebody said, listen, if you learn a little about biology, you're going to worry about your health in the future. You'll understand that information.
Totally.
You're gonna maybe you'll go even be excited enough to go into the field, right, of biology. So maybe the first lesson of biology ought to be, here are the reasons why we chose to take your time to do this, right? And like a coach had said, would have more of that kind of
Train of thought.
Right? It's we want to encourage you to do this because of these reasons. But by the way, the other thing that the coach had said, coaching is very individualized. A classroom is not an individualized task, right? So that's another thing that's interesting, because the way you motivate, and we all know this, I can just tell, like, I'm a runner, right? And as a runner, I'm most competitive when I'm chasing. Okay. In other words, somebody's ahead of me. I can focus that on a person. Okay. I know that there are other people that are better leaders. In other words, they like to get ahead of the field, and they're the most competitive when they're ahead, right? I just use that as an analogy. People are different. People get motivated by different things. They get demotivated by different things. In fact, in the journey of a person, one of the things that is really quite important and profound to learn is, how do you regulate yourself to motivate yourself?
How you regulate yourself to motivate yourself.
And just using the running analogy, when I'm running, it's painful, right? It's not that great.
Exactly.
I'm not enjoying myself. But what happens is, since I know that I need to motivate myself to run, so what I'll do is I'll sign up for a race. I don't expect to win the race, right? But I know that if I have signed up for the race, then I know I have to train for this race, right? And therefore, I've built a mechanism for myself to motivate for my training, right?
Maybe you can ask an app to develop a system, which we already do with the watches and all the stuff. We mostly say, "Hey, Mr. Garmin, I'm going to run a race in December. Can you please do a plan that can train me from now until December to run a half marathon in 2 hours?" Okay, so that happens today.
Your watch is your coach.
Yeah.
The way,
it's
your
very-
planner. This is your planner.
So more than the watch being the coach, because I love to run next to somebody and talking. Okay, I'm no, I don't like to go.
So you get into a
forward.
social group that runs running groups. So my point is, you have part of the coaching task and the part of the self-actualization task is actually to know your predispositions and then know how to regulate yourself. Right. You almost have to go outside of yourself to regulate yourself.
But I was thinking more about the fact of the
Inner
learning path.
intelligence. I was thinking, we talk about emotional intelligence, how you regulate your emotions, and how you train yourself to and your mind to, I don't know, to have a long-term goals, or because you respiration, you need air.
I'll give you a perfect example. So for myself, and for many people, if you want to get something long-term done, I know, especially if I have to write something that requires a lot of thought, I know I should attack it first in the morning.
Okay.
The first 2 hours in the morning, if I can get it to that, but because I know by 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, my brain is so frazzled, I'm just so many different thoughts. It's hard to focus down. This is for me. Other people, they do that late at night, right?
Exactly.
So there's a sort of this process of, and often coaches can be helpful here, by the way, is learning yourself to know how to regulate yourself. And then once you know how to regulate yourself intellectually, then you can start doing planning. Because it's not that people don't know, it's like, if you're talking about exercise, I use that as an example because people know what to do. It's not like, yes, you should exercise, you should run, you should walk, you should have good diet. That's not the issue. The issue is, how will you actually do it?
So how do you teach the teacher how to teach?
So I think part of it's from the coaching is a profession. So my sense is, and even though you talked about there's a baseball coach and basketball coach and there is the specifics of the actual sports, but then remarkably there's a commonality at the emotional level, right? How do you motivate? Because a lot of this comes down to how do you motivate individuals onto the path that they want. They have to want it, right? So how you teach people is, I think you need to be very, very good at assess. Like, I don't think everybody can do it, right? So like somebody that's an extreme engineer that doesn't know how to read people is not going to be good at this, right? Yeah. But somebody that can read people and can understand people can then try to understand how, given the task, how what are the cues and what's the interpersonal style that will drive them towards a behavior that they both want. That's the task, right? And by the way, getting back to teachers in the classroom, of course, the good teachers do this. They just do it naturally, but they can't do it. They do it as a generalist, not as a specialist, right?
Exactly.
They do it as a generalist, and they, over the years they've learned, how to, it's a combination of inspiration, experience. Sometimes it's critical feedback, right? They also know, one of the things is, if you told me, I'm going back to my running, right? So I'm a recreational runner, so I'll be lucky if I do 8-minute miles, right? So if you tell me, oh, geez, you ought to run like, well, no, if you tell me to run at the speed of a professional runner who's they're running 4-minute miles, it's just an impossibility, right?
Totally.
Okay. So the issue for coaches and for us all as individuals, we're always operating on the edge. And what I mean by we're operating, so the interesting thing is, if I'm running 8-minute miles, 4-minute miles might be world class, but it's immaterial. 7.5-minute miles is the interesting thing, right? So you were always operating on the edge, and so coaching is really about all the things that I talked about, but then, how do you operate on the edge for improvement, right? Now, sports coaches know this very well. I mean, if I walk in and I can do, maybe I can lift, whatever, 100 pounds. I have no idea actually, 100 pounds, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to say, okay, now
Do 1,000.
now do a 400-pound thing. They're going to say, let's do 120.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you did. Now listen. So the management of all of that is I think in a broader sense than sports.
You know a cool thing, like a really cool
with
thing about coaching too. That whenever he's saying do 120, they may say do a 120, but lift up your
There's
back
technique.
this way. Hey man, put your thumbs a little bit closer or farther apart or whatever, because they are looking at it from a third view or third eye concept. And I love the third view, the third party concept, because most of the issues that we have in internal systems should be targeted from external resources.
Sure.
Or external entrepreneurial initiatives. Okay, so so to solve a problem is easier to bring a collaboration with another industry, with another culture, which goes back to, we all share some problems, but the solution may be many miles away or in a different industry next door. But it's solving an issue from the outside and not from the inside. Many problems could be solved from the inside, but other ones have to be from the outside. And I want to bring that, because you mentioned, YouTube many times, and then I have a theory. My theory is that because this is the time for the education industry to be hacked, to be more efficient, the need for brick and mortar buildings is going to change. Okay, the purpose and the need for going to remote areas and build that, just like we did. But humanity did with churches and temples and stuff like that. They went to the most rural areas.
Evangelists,
The evangelists, they built these things, these temples, and all that. We did the same thing with education, schools. We did all these temples. And then today, we're trying to say, you know what? The temple could be virtual as long as the information is secure and is practical. We had a conversation that was so important for teachers and students, which is, what are the fundamental teachings that we need to spread all over the world?
the principles.
The principle of fundamentals. What do you think are those?
I mean, I sort of started with the first one. There are these gaps, right? So you have socialization. You have the next gap is reading, writing, so you can participate in the world of IP that's available in the world. And then the third one is, as I said, we're sort of developing this, which is how do you navigate pathways in the sea of information? Because in the past, let's say the person that's in a village outside of Medellin without internet access, if you said to them, okay, learn chemistry. Well, I think educators might say, well, but they don't have a chemistry lab, they don't have a chemistry teacher, they don't have a chemistry book, right? Okay, all limitations, right? Today, literally, if I have my phone, okay, I can get any information on chemistry that I want. By the way, I live in a natural chemistry lab. It just happens to be, and part of this is kind of opening up the mind. Like we have a in Florida, we have a online school called Florida Virtual School, and it's a completely online school. It's self-paced, and then I thought, well, how do they run chemistry labs, right? Okay, so and all remote, but okay. And it turns out all their chemistry labs are run through the kitchen.
Yeah.
Okay, well, a kitchen is a chemistry lab. We just don't call it a chemistry lab.
Exactly.
But let's bring back to Instagram. If you look in Instagram, there are many things that says how to clean your shoes using what you have at home.
Yeah.
And they say, go ahead, grab some bleach and some salt and combine these two things, and then you generate a reaction that could then.
So my point is, if that person in the village outside of Medellin just had a mental model that said, I can learn chemistry, okay? Now the question is, in this literally the ocean, in their location. Yeah. In the issue is not really not learning chemistry. The issue is there's literally an ocean of information out there. I mean, and I don't, it's not just YouTube. It's everything that's out there. So it's how do I if I like once I learn the first time, I need to learn chemistry. Here's how I navigate the world to do that. That chemistry class that I looked at, or that chemistry experiment I looked at, well, it's talking about using stuff I don't have. I have to find the places where, just knowing how to do that, right? Okay, once you navigate that the first time, then maybe the same person says, I need to learn physics, or I need to learn something else, The more they do that, the more they're able to learn. Now, just going back to learning, people in the structured form of learning, we basically have a headset that's something like this. You should learn this stuff. And why we're teaching you this way, by the way, traditionally has been because there's a scarcity, that I talked about, of the teacher and the classroom and so on. So if you don't learn it here, you can't learn it outside. Remember in the old days, that guy in the Medellin, in the village, for him to learn chemistry, unless they went to the school,
it was impossible.
It was impossible, right? Okay, but we're shifting to a world, what I'll call on-demand education, right? What do I mean by that is he's not going to sit there and say, I need to learn chemistry. Yeah, because by the way, I've probably never heard of chemistry. They wouldn't even call it chemistry. He probably is going to say something like, I got a problem to solve. And my problem is, is there a way that I'm just going to make up something? Is there a way that you can have some process where you can transform this to this? I can have clean water. Let me just make this. Okay. Yeah. Is there a way? I have this problem with the water where it's, is there a way to purify water with other mechanisms that I have here? He's going to come at it for the problem. And by the way, like all of us, what's hilarious to me is that whenever I talk to people, they go through the normal education system, and then I say, in your daily life, when you have to learn something, how do you do it? I go on YouTube. I mean, this ranges from I just got this speakers, and I don't know how to program them, and I don't want to actually read the manual, right? Or maybe the manual doesn't have what I say, or what are other people's experiences of using these speakers?
The manual is in YouTube.
Yeah. The manual is in YouTube. So my point is, increasingly, we have to. If you're going to say what is education, education is once you've formulated what your problem is, how do you go about conceptualizing it and solving it with the sea of information that's out there, right?
Navigate the sea of education.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that the information is not. And what, by the way, the people that do this a lot, what they quickly discover is whatever your problem is, somebody else has seen this problem, right? And by the way, what is AI now? Just going back to AI,
Yes, yeah.
AI is really, and I'll use the programming concept as the most prominent version of this. So there's something called Substack, which is a community where, as people have had problems in programming, they have gone in, they've asked questions, and there's question and answer. So there's now this massive database of question and answers based on people's community building up this database. Well, what is AI? AI takes all of that and consumes it in such a way that then I can, at a higher level, say, I want to do this. The question and answers are always there. So it just pulls from that database. It's really the Substack database that it's pulling from, right? And in the programming world, we've learned to do this, right? You have the idea of databases, you have the idea of people questioning whatever problem I have. If you can get that to other spaces, you get similar productivity gains, right? But it's like the thing I want to get across is there are some people that want to just learn things on their own, but almost always somebody wants to learn things because they want to do something. They have a problem to solve, right? My solar panels don't seem to be as efficient anymore. Hey, I wonder who's faced this problem. Who's what are the issues with it? If they're my solar panels, I'm really concerned about this. I am motivated.
Let me
Solve the problem. Your own problem.
Yeah.
Exactly.
let me tell you a story that you may enjoy. And in one of Alejandro's podcasts, we talked with a guy that is a really cool guy. Okay, and this guy was telling us about the beginning of collaboration between scientists. Okay, so in Medellin, they had this scientific lab, okay, that was created before the MIT Media Lab and by the same people. So in Medellin, they were printing in Fortran, all this software, at the beginning of software. So they went over there to the printing of the software, and then there were 8-9 pages, and at the end, only one word, error. Okay, so what happened is they had to wait 6, 7, 8 hours for this to be printed just to say error. So where they were all sitting together waiting for the small software to be printed, they say, hey, you know what? While I wait, let me take a look. And then they're like, oh, you know what? I see your problem is this way, is that way. So now from there, from the collaboration between scientists, then it is now a database developed or built based on all this information where you can go using AI to pull from.
Right.
Information, and information should be the same, because right now, even though there is a world or a sea of information, we do need to make sure that it is curated and then somehow make sure that it is serving whatever purpose it is.
I was thinking, I need to translate a bit more about this technical topics into education, because you're talking about PBL, project-based learning, you know, or problem-based learning. I have a problem or I have a challenge, and so I need to solve it. So I need to, understand some principles, chemistry principles of physics principles. And you're saying something really cool too, because you're talking about peer-to-peer learning. Okay, we have the same problem. Maybe my approach is from here and your approach is from there, and we could, create a new solution or
Collaborate
in that way. That's really cool. You talk about AI, and a lot of teachers right now in the world are saying, okay, what will be the next step? What will happen with my job? A lot of fear around AI. What do you think? What kind of suggestions or recommendations we could give them, about this trending topic?
Well, I don't. Well, AI, at least the way it's defined today, is not. I don't think it's going to profoundly, change the teacher's job. I think the teacher's. In fact, and part of the reason is the teacher's job, I think, will change before this point, because all the things we talked about before. As you have this accumulation of knowledge, right? And really, as the focus moves from the teachers, like I would say, the job of the teacher is going to specialize from a generalist into three very different kinds of teachers. So there's a subject matter expert that may even have a learning theory kind of aspect to it, and they're going to be very good at explaining whatever the subject is, right? And in fact, probably captured in some way, maybe even in an AI. You know, in other words, right now we think of the subject matter expert producing videos or being in charge of animations or things like that. But in the future, it might be that this person trains an AI agent that can answer questions and present information, right? So that's a specialist. And that, think of it as a physics specialist, chemistry specialist, you know. A completely different kind of person, I think, is going to be the interaction point with the student on the questions that the student has. Okay, so in my old world, in like academia, this would be more like a teaching assistant, right? Now, again, their job may also get AI may be helpful to their job because maybe the simple questions can be answered by an AI agent, but the complicated questions have a back and forth, right? But this person doesn't need to be the level of expert that this other person has to be.
It's got to be more connected to the student.
And this person has to be a lot more empathetic.
More connected to the student. The other one is more connected with the knowledge and the information. This one is more connected to the student. That's a fantastic.
To the people.
Yeah. And then the third part is the person.
Like a third role.
The third role in education. If you had a big picture, you know, the generalist does everything, but the third specialization is the person that's the coach, the motivator.
The motivator.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that person is sitting there, and they may not even know the subject.
No, because they know the purpose of the student. Yeah. So one is connecting the information, the other one is connecting the student, and the other is connecting the purpose. The ability to think an existential question.
Yeah.
So it's existential question, then connection, social connection of community, and then information.
So the other part that's interesting is that this third person, the student must feel like, and by the way, this is one of the oddities of our current education system. The oddity is that the teacher is both, they do all these roles, but if you think about it, in between these three roles, they have some dichotomy with each other relative to the student. So the coach, the person must feel like the coach is always on my side, right? If you don't feel that, then they cannot be a good coach, right? But the teacher, I'll say whoever's doing certification, they have to be on the side of
prove me, or if no, I don't certify
you. Know that. No, they have to do the certification side, right? Okay, which is useful for you ultimately. But today we put teachers in this position relative to the student that they're both the judge and the coach.
Yeah,
and these two things are very. So from a student's point of view. Am I really going to tell you my deep issues of what I don't understand?
Are you my
when
friend
tomorrow,
or my enforcer?
Yeah. It's a very delicate thing. So if you separate these things, then the coach can really be a coach. Say, yeah, I understand you're having these. Why are you having these? Okay, I get. Okay, try to move it this way. Whereas the certifier can do its role well, right? It can be blind to these other issues, right? So to answer your question, I don't know if it's about AI. It's just how the decomposition of teaching, I think, will occur as a profession. By the way, I think the automation levels will be different. So you don't need, once you get a world-class expert to produce the content for physics, I mean, do we really need 500,000?
You need one.
You need one, maybe two, maybe it's like 5 learning styles, whatever. Right? You don't need that many of these guys, and it's produced, right? You need a lot of these. The second form, which is the high touch
community
people.
aspect of it.
Yeah.
and you need a lot of coaches.
A lot of coaches.
Now, the
A lot of
intersection is
motivators.
different. Yeah.
Yeah, but the coaching can also be done at home. So,
It can.
So a father could be a coach.
Absolutely.
So if your father is a coach, you solve the problem, because for every son, it's very likely that at the beginning,
They're motivated to coach.
yeah,
But there's still, I
quite
think a father
complicated, I
can be,
think,
but
to
you
work
still
for it.
have the judgment, right?
no, of course, no, I'm just saying that the fatherhood.
As long as the student feel like they have to feel like this person is on their side, and if they have that relationship, that's fine, right?
No, yeah, I'm just talking about escalation. So
Yeah.
it's easier to find and to teach a bunch of coaches that care. They have
Yeah.
a love. So it may not be your father,
Yeah.
maybe your uncle, maybe a friend of the somebody in
Yeah.
your community.
Yeah.
But and you can, let's say a person can coach, I don't know, 5, 10 kids.
Yeah.
Okay, but you need the volume of people. So
Yes.
you need billions of coaches.
Yes. Yeah.
But you don't need billions of experts. On
No.
the contrary, I feel that many things in YouTube and information, we are doing a lot of information that is super redundant.
Yes.
And I don't know, maybe because your explanation is so human. Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't expect that type of explanation from a person that is so focused on AI. So I was very impressed with that. But then going back to the point of redundancy, information could be. The same research could be replicated in many different places at the same time or at different times, just because you don't have access to whatever was researched. And then we have the same issue in computers. Sometimes, you have information that is replicated a billion times on your phone. So if you copy the same picture inside your phone 20,000 or 20 million times, depending on what phone you have, then you don't have any more space when you only have one picture.
Right.
Okay. So the same thing happens with knowledge too. Many people doing one day, but they replicate that day 60,000 times. So you don't learn anything. So this, if you do a little bit something different every day, then you can. So if you extrapolate that to the information in the world, then we can escalate and learn from things that have been already solved.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. By the way, we as human beings have mechanisms for this. It's just that the formal structures don't appreciate them. So in fact, what you were talking about, that I'm seeing the same thing over and over, I'm not learning. What we typically call that is boredom.
Boredom.
That's a human emotion, boredom. And we are programmed to do that. Now, when we see boredom in a classroom, we don't appreciate it.
And sadly, it's full of boredom.
So my point is that
Boring
a
brains.
lot of this, is about you get this specialization, but then like the coach is
Motivator
is motivating and managing these processes, helping you manage these processes. And I think, just agreeing with you, outsider, like the reason Messi is a really smart guy, and you understand, but what he still has a coach, and probably has several coaches, because he understands that they can see him in a way he can't see himself, right?
From outside,
From the outside,
view,
right?
yeah, it's a beautiful.
So I think the coach can be by the way, in this model, again, a lot of this comes down to mental models. If the mental model is, like I said, the Oracle model, it's interesting. In the Oracle model, the student has no active role. They're the recipient. Okay?
I was going to tell you that because now
the
in another
recipient.
coaching, like Pepe Guardiola said, I learned a lot from these players. Okay,
flips the roles.
So in the coaching model, the student, by definition, is the active agent,
active.
right? So I only mention this because a lot of times in education, I mean, literally, the student is the widget, right? They're the widget that's going through the factory of the school, right? So, but if you flip the model and you sort of say, no, well, we have a certain plan, but okay, you want to go do something else, as long as you show, you're making progress on these big things we're talking about, like socialization, and you can learn how to learn, okay? And at least if I was doing it, I would sort of say, okay, What are you interested in? You're interested in I don't know, sustainability. Great. Learn this, and come back and show us.
Hey, I wanted to.
It's a different headset for. It's just a different. One of the things that we're going to get into the mental health things, right?
Yeah.
So when you're empowered as a student. You feel like I mean, today a student really doesn't feel like they have control. I mean, I'll talk about the U.S. system, right? The U.S. system, the traditional system is you're basically a widget. You're told what to do. By the way, you have the same rights as prisoners. You can't leave. So,
The same right of prisoners. Yeah.
I mean, you can't leave.
So,
I mean, they're literally, for all sorts of good reasons and bad reasons. But you are not empowered, right? I mean, you're like, if you ask most students. Do I control my own fate in any way? No. But by the way, you're in this status up until about 11th grade, and then everybody in the world comes to you and says, "So what do you want to do in life?" It's like,
I don't know.
First of all, I'm sure many students will have the point of view. Well, I don't know. I'll ask what I'm allowed to do. What I'm allowed to do. They don't have the view. They don't generally. With some exception of obviously. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Generally, their feeling on their own control of their own life is missing.
Raul, but if
Even the purpose, even in purpose in life.
Purpose, forget purpose, but just even control.
But let me ask you
control
something,
the self.
Alejandro,
Wow,
that I feel that can empower the student, which is this concept from another industry that is open book testing.
Right.
Okay. So I feel that, and I'm just realizing that today is that when some of the people that work for me in the service industry, they have to go get a certification or a test, they feel empowered because they not only have coaching through my empiric training, but they can go to a test with an open book, meaning I don't have to have the knowledge in my mind, okay?
Right.
So I don't have to remember everything that was said or done in a class or whatever, because I still have the ability to search in this book. So I'm thinking that as an industry that exists where the student is empowered with some level of information to generate and then use skills to formulate a solution to a certain question or problem. Do you know what concept that is whenever you have the possibility to research in a book and then answer a test based on your ability to research?
No, in education.
Yeah.
Ask me again.
So the question is this. I give you a task, okay?
Yeah.
How do you purify water?
For example.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you go into YouTube and put how you purify water.
The same question.
Then YouTube is showing you, hey, you filter big
First
particles.
step in, second
you
step,
use carbon at the end to purify. So that
An algorithm,
but
actually.
look at this. You didn't have to know. You didn't have to know the function of the carbon, the function of the stone. No, it gave you a solution pretty fast. So the same concept applies in technical training. Okay, you say, okay, how do I connect concrete and steel? Let's say you go look at the book and it says you use an epoxy, blah, 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 blah. So you don't have to really understand and know all the bonding process. You go get the epoxy, you put it in there, and then they both get combined. So I'm talking about empowers a solution, but with the information right next to your hands or whatever.
The thing is, most of the time when you want to learn something, you want first, you have the question first, Some of, as you mentioned, I need to understand how we can use this camera. So, okay, camera, Sony, in YouTube. This is my question in my mind first, not outside, But when the students went to the school, the teachers put the questions inside and try to convince them that this is really important. I saw a really interesting project here in US named zombie-based learning. Zombie, like an apocalypse zombie. The narrative was really cool. And the students must learn biology, geography, a lot of topics because they are in apocalypse zombie. So they need to, I don't know, survive in some situations. So when the knowledge is useful and have a meaning for
Yeah.
you, you know, and so that's part of the differentiation between how we could, and I believe that in this conversation we are talking about this. We need a new narrative and new approach of education and how we could learn not faster, but in a meaningful way. You know,
Yeah, based on our needs. So I
based
think
on our
if I
needs
had
and
to
our
tell-
purpose.
If I had to tell something to teachers as
Yeah.
from this conversation, is you go out there, figure out what the needs are, and try to teach them subjects based on their needs. Like you were saying, Rahul, you're saying about nutrition or biology, and the fact that, you know what, guys, you guys are gonna need these. Please learn these concepts. I think that, and I think that we. Thank you so much, because I know we're taking too
Yeah,
much
too
of your
long.
time.
Yeah,
I
I
love
know.
it because the conversation got to be so entertaining. But it's like this opportunity for teachers to go and then start creating programs based on needs, not on what you said. Those concepts that, please, you have to learn this. Oh no, why? Oh, I don't know. You just have to, because whoever told me that I had to learn this. So then I don't know what the need is. It's just
Yeah.
that we have to teach you that.
Well, and usually what happens is, it's not that, like I said, it's not, nobody had bad intentions, but a lot of this has to do with history, right? So I would say the historical background is something like this, right? So somebody, as I said, this was all, this was in the world of very limited resources, right? Teachers limited. Okay, so people sort of said something to the effect of, if we're going to invest all this money, we're going to build these buildings, we're going to employ these students. Okay, what is a curriculum that we think that we should invest in so that if everybody has it, they have a good chance of success, right? That's really
And
the
paying
idea.
taxes, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but we're gonna actually we're taking all this money and we're investing, right? As a society, we're doing this, right? And then, by the way, because of the way this worked, this floated up to the priests in the education world, and then somebody decided in the sciences there were curriculum committees that sat there and said they should learn a little biology, they should learn a little chemistry, they should learn a little physics, and so this was the thinking process, right? It has been the thinking process to date, and I would make two comments. First is that is never explained to the actual students. It's not even explained to the teachers, right? We just assume it as a system, right? Like like I said, if you had a realistic conversation when you started high school or whatever, and said, this is the curriculum, and why we're teaching this is because based on experience we've had, we know you're not all going to do biology, but knowing a little biology is useful in life, right? And these are the kind of places it's useful. Losing a little math is useful, and so on, right? And so that's kind of one thing. And by the way, the other thing that's also real is sometimes the actual subject is people will forget, but the training that the subject does in your mind continues to be useful. So technical critical thinking.
Yeah.
Whatever way you get it tends to be useful, right? So that, first of all, that kind of motivation is never done, right? But my further point is, it made a lot of sense, I would say, in that world of scarcity. It makes really not that much sense in the world of
Abundance.
availability of completely on-demand education, right?
Yeah.
In that world, you're like, well, if I want to learn biology when I need it, I'll just learn it then. Right? Why are you?
Let me build my need
Yeah,
first. Let me build my. Why would I
Let me
solve something that I don't need?
force it. So I think there's now this intersection with technology that is now. It kind of reminds me, by the way, of in my day, the big debate was calculator wars. I don't know, previous to this,
The worst risk.
there were people that were very excited about the fact that you had to learn by hand how to do addition, mathematics. This was will we allow well, how will they survive? But in the world of calculators, as it were, knowing how to do longhand division to n digits is not that useful, right? The point being, you have to realize that calculators exist. They're easily available. In the world of the internet, with everything available, you really, the task is how to use the calculator effectively, how to use the internet effectively, not recreate it, right?
Yeah.
So that's, I think we're now in this shift. When we're hacking education, just to get back to hacking education, part of the hack is when the fundamental pillars of how you built a system are really no longer true. Like I said, the fundamental pillars were clear. For me to teach you, vision processing or production, I needed a teacher that knew it, and I needed a space to teach you.
No.
Neither of these is true.
So,
right?
I wanted to make sure about Blockbuster and other companies that thought that the brick and mortar was going to be so important, and today those companies don't feel that the same.
Right.
It
I
has
think
changed.
that the school is living something like that.
So my
like a
point is-
blockbuster moment.
I'm thinking that right now is like a brick and mortar issue. Okay,
Okay.
we see it with many industries, and right now, today, it happens to be the industry of education. So brick and
Yeah.
mortar, I do feel that we have to find really, really creative ways to use those buildings.
Let me. By the way, I was asked about
that's
this
infrastructure.
in the state of Florida. I was asked about this, and I made some suggestions. They might be. So today, where we're set up here, as an example, in this county, there's significant, millions of dollars invested in real estate here. Okay, for schools, I should say, for schools. And the interesting thing is, those are controlled by the Department of Ed. So it's the educators that are controlling it, right? So the question I really asked is, well, why? First of all, what does an educator know about facilities management? And we're getting in Florida anyway, and other places, we're running into issues such as security issues and drug issues and these kinds of things, which really, in many ways are not connected. They're societal issues, right? So one suggestion I had is, why don't we separate the facilities management function from the education function, right? So have a professional facilities manager. By the way, that facilities manager can reuse this facilities in the summer and do other things, okay? And then the local education function leases these facilities, just like anybody else does. Okay, now why? I'm going to go to the step two. Step two is that this facilities manager can lease to multiple education functions. As an example, why not have a room in most of these schools just with laptops and computing resources, where the student can come in and participate in any online school in the world. But locally, there are advantages to come locally.
Let me give you an idea, Rahul, on that, and Alejandro, on that. Because I like to challenge people on applications. And
But for the community too, you must challenge our community of hackers of education.
again, let me challenge community. Let me challenge this development, okay? There is a community that I feel is very important is in every school. That is gifted, talented, or special eds. If you somehow create one classroom that will then communicate and create a community among different schools, different countries, different cities, different states, that will be a community-based learning environment, okay, inside a building, which is needed, but it will be connecting multiple cultures and multiple areas or locations. That will be a good beginning of community-based establishments.
Right.
Okay, so if some people and I
We
think
could do like a nerd army or something like that, or like a geek army together, working together, and even
all over the world. But
all over the world.
That's how gaming works today.
Exactly.
That's how all these so for
Maybe we
instance.
could have I don't know, a global classroom in that way, you know, working with those.
I like that community because according to some numbers in some of your podcasts that you talk about gifted or talented, it talks about like, okay, let's say it's a 6%. So if 6%, let's have a factor of error, and let's say it's 5%. 5% of the students in a school, you can have the time, they do all these activities, and the other half of the time, they can work as a community in these schools with other communities that are of similar. So I really think that could be a beginning of developing a school that, yes, is using the brick and mortar, but is connecting a community of gifted, talented students that have a different speed of learning than the actual people, but the same need of emotional intelligence, activity, and many other things.
And motivation, of course.
Yeah.
I think we are done. You know, this conversation is super profound and also full of insights. The idea to have this connection with teachers, of educators, or learners around the world. But I want to highlight something. We have been discussing about the educational system based of a scarcity world, but we are in abundance world. So I think the challenge for our hackers of education is how we could design a new educational system for abundance world, you know, full of technology, full of information and opportunity for everyone. Hey guys, was incredible this conversation. Thank you very much.
All right.
Rahul,
Thank
my
you.
friend.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, man.